What are some things women complain about men that you believe is projection? Women are much harsher on each other's appearances than we are on theirs. Reminds me of the Twitter post by that feminist, the patriarchy is not being able to wear the same dress twice at different public events, and some dude responded, there's not a single guy on this entire earth that gives a F if you wear the same dress on 2 different occasions. That's all on women. The patriarchy is such a convenient catch-all excuse that always allows them to shift blame to us. Ultimate get out of jail free card. Also, the statement that women don't dress up or wear makeup for men can't be true if they want to blame men for it. Men not dating them because they are tall or bigger. There are folks who care, but when they use it as I will only date tall or bigger guys than me so I can feel feminine. That's their own insecurity that they need to work on and not blame others for. Let me pass along this wisdom from the ancients. I'm taller than average and well off. If I even get a hint of this kind of thinking from someone I'm dating, it's over. Full stop. If a woman ever does this, run. I don't care how pretty she is or what she brings to the table. These women are just the absolute worst. And this behavior is your red flag. It's a signal that they are superficial and narcissistic to the extent that they are not able to see you, or likely anyone else, as a person. Only a means to an end. I may exclusively date red flag disasters, but even I've never been dumb enough to get involved with one of these creatures. So if a guy doesn't want to date a fat, uneducated, poor woman, he is superficial and narcissistic. You are attracted to who you are attracted to. Let's say you don't want to date someone who is handicapped or disabled. Does that make you superficial and narcissistic? I wouldn't think it made a person insecure or narcissistic. It is they just have a type. If this wasn't significant to most people, they wouldn't bother having height on dating apps. I feel like a lot of the complaints I see pertain to a certain type of man, and they always want to interact with that type of man despite having so many complaints. I call those men the emotionally stimulating men. The rest of us are just too bland in comparison. Funny, given that bland often means more stable pair bonding long term and children raised properly. Locker room talk. From what I've heard / seen, it is way more common for women to talk about their sex lives / their partner's intimate moments in detail than it is for men. Most of my guy friends never have discussed much in detail about their sex lives with their partners. All that happened in my locker room changing room in school for my football team etc was friendly bullying and just taking the piss. We'd rob each other's shoes and throw them around etc. Was just funny. I don't know if it's projection, but if you don't have a significant dating history by a certain point in your life, women seem to treat that as a red flag. I really think women don't get this, but they really never approach men romantically at all. I know a bunch say they do, but I'm skeptical. So a guy could be a 10 in most women's eyes, but if he's got just enough social awkwardness to not feel comfortable enough to approach women, he will never get a date. It's a real catch-22, isn't it? Women say they like a guy with confidence, and in this case it means the kind of confidence that comes from successfully dating women, meaning lack of inexperience and lack of awkwardness around women, which is fine. But a guy is not going to get that without dating women. Not just the confidence to have already dated a bunch of women, but the confidence to know he can continue to do it. It doesn't even matter if you're famous, a supermodel, or will do anything he wants in bed. You'll be as temporary as the rest of them were to him. And yet, they still want that guy. Men only want sex. Anyone saying that likely only has sex to offer in a relationship and not much else. I don't think you could possibly explain to teenage me the number of times I'd say, girl, I gotta work in the morning. I just wanna watch TV and chill. Women don't get glossed up because of men. I've told my wife so many times she doesn't have to. She will get judged by other women. This I'm doing it for myself is a load of BS. Not entirely. There are indeed some women who glam up at home just because, but for the most part it's for the eyes of others. Women think it's acceptable to sexually harass service workers. Get a group of 4 women together and you may as well have an Andrew Tate fan club meetup. They'll say wildly inappropriate things. Continue after they are told the it's over the line and they can't keep their damn hands to themselves. I work on a team of construction workers and we literally make fun of the guys who hit on women and are inappropriate with them. Yeah, my bad. I definitely shouldn't have compared them to construction workers. Maybe an Andrew Tate fan club would have been a more apt companion. Nah, no worries. It's definitely a stereotype. That we aren't good communicators. This is a big one. It's not that we are bad communicators. We are actually usually more concise. It's that, like with everything else, they don't want to meet us halfway or make any effort to understand us. They want us to understand them. If they don't understand us, they are not mind readers. If we don't get them, you don't love me. If we don't successfully interpret their signals and essentially read their minds, the only explanation is that you don't love me. I'm sorry, I only asked you what's wrong 1000 times for you to only tell me that you're fine. I shoulder obviously known that B Jenny, whom I've never met, was being mean to you at work today and needed to be surprised with a Black Forest cheesecake from Joe's and a back rub as soon as you got home. Even though we haven't talked at all since we left for work this morning and I got home after you, I should have felt a disturbance in the force. Left work early, got you that treat and more. I knew I should have, but I didn't because I hate you, because you're fat and ugly and am secretly in love with Jenny and we are conspiring against you. It's also my fault that your dad abandoned you when you were 7 and that your ex cheated on you. I'm being hyperbolic, obviously, but sadly not by much. Lack of emotional intelligence. If he consistently communicates and expresses his emotions, he's a Bian. Should man up. If he's stoic, he's a poor communicator. I do believe in a healthy middle ground, but most men lean one way or the other. You can't have everything you want when you want it from a human being. I feel women project this as a lack of emotional intelligence because they can't adjust to different individuals. All men should just be a monolith of whatever they need at any given moment. I also feel as if a lot women can't handle not being the better partner and seek out terrible men so they can get these platitudes off. Edit. Grammar. This is one of the best examples on the thread. Those who decry a lack of EQ usually have some of the lowest. They accuse others of it as they don't get understood. They are usually fully understood, but refuse to try to understand or empathize with others. They can't or won't attempt to see any other perspective but their own, and if you don't feel as they do, lack of emotional intelligence, you keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. Inigo Montoya. The idea that men only bring up their issues so they can take away resources and support from women. Locker room talk. I've heard women in the office openly talk about sex details and descriptions of their partner's dick. The idea that men only bring up their issues so they can take away resources and support from women. I became homeless when I came out as gay to my mother as a teen. Despite being gay, victim of homophobia, a minor, and a highly successful student, started university at age 15, was valedictorian more years than not. I had to sleep 2 weeks outdoors before I was assigned to a homeless shelter, and even then, it was horrible. Gymnasium style sleeping room with hundreds of beds lined up, all filled with potentially mentally ill, thieving, dangerous people. I couldn't sleep my first night there after one guy got stabbed in his sleep. I was thankfully given a grant by the government to keep studying, so I could afford to pay $200 a month to get a room, 9 square meters. Literally a walk-in closet with a bed so small I couldn't extend my legs, that had a door that locks, so I could be safe at night and keep my stuff there in the day. I lived there for 2 years until I got a spot in student housing. At the time, I had a lesbian friend who wound up in the same situation as me, homeless after coming out. She went to the same social worker as me, and she was moved into a women-only shelter where she had her own fully furnished, comfy apartment. That very same day, she did not have to pay 1 cent, as opposed to me in my pathetic room. She said that most of the units in her shelter are empty because there just aren't enough homeless women to fill them. That prompted me to research the topic and write an assignment in sociology class about the unfairness of resource distribution among homeless people by sexes. My sociology professor refused to grade it at all. She said the assignment was about structural sexism, so my paper was off topic. She told me that reverse sexism does not exist, and she refused to hear that sexism against men is still sexism, not reverse anything. I told a female classmate about it, and her first reaction was to call me sexist against women for saying men have it worse in terms of resource distribution when homeless. Thankfully, she apologized and recognized that it was unfair. After I showed her sources on facts showing that over 95% of homeless people are men, but that homeless women get over 80% of all the resources from both government and charity, that women make up nearly half of all permanently rehoused ex-homeless people despite homeless women being a tiny group compared to homeless men, that homeless women virtually never sleep outside even in the worst nights, because mixed gender shelters have a policy of expelling male residents to make room for women who show up, that there are 0 male-only homeless shelters, while there are tens of thousands of female-only shelters, and the rest are mixed gender with an explicit policy to favor female residents over male residents. Despite 95% of homeless people being men, I still got a 0 on that assignment though. The professor never changed her mind. Mansplaining might kind of fit in that category. Basically being an arrogant p who talks down to others is seen as a man thing by many, despite exactly this being one of the most common complaints men have about the women they are dating or married to. In reality it is quite common among both genders. Also, just because I'm a man and I'm explaining something to you doesn't mean I'm mansplaining. If I'm not at all talking down to you and I'm simply explaining something you actually don't know how to do or anything about, I'm just trying to share some knowledge. Mansplaining has become one of those words that has lost its meaning through overuse. Sort of like how gaslighting used to mean use of psychological manipulation to get somebody to doubt their own reality, but now it just means that the person is lying to you or disagreeing with you. When they say men do the bare minimum, you aren't romantic any longer. Why don't you pay attention to me like you used to, hon? You never did that for me, and I'm not 18 anymore. You're getting at least as much as you ever gave. I bought you a necklace. You bought me a sock. But I'm not romantic because I'm not taking you to Italy this summer. Women who complain that all men are s and don't deserve them when they bring absolutely nothing to the table themselves to actually make them attractive. So they just pretend and complain all guys aren't good enough and not that they're undesirable. That looks are the most important thing to a man, that sex is the most important thing to a man, that men are lying, conniving, manipulative, abusers that will say / do anything to get what they want, that men don't know how to feel empathy or compassion. Just a few. I'm sure more than enough to get complaints. Weaponized incompetence. Women make it sound like it's exclusively a male tactic. Personally, I know women employ it just as much as men. True. You never hear it labeled weaponized incompetence. Some common stuff I've experienced are: can't take out the rubbish because it stinks, can't lift heavy objects or place things on the top shelf, but it's magically done when you're not there, can't handle the drill because they're not bothered to learn how to use it, won't bother learning to drive because that's also the man's job. All men cheat, sure, some do, but most actually don't, even when having the option to do so whenever. Various studies and questionnaires have come to the result that women are more likely to cheat than men. But unlike men, women are smarter about it and usually don't get caught. But again, not all women cheat either. It's just that this phrase men cheat seems to be a projection by women who do so themselves. A psychology study made some forever ago found out that when someone accuses their partner of cheating, it's actually them who have cheated or had the thoughts of cheating, and the baseless accusations come from trying to justify their own cheating. That men teaches other men to suppress their emotions. No, boo boo. Look into the mirror. They say they want men to be more emotional and to open up. What they mean is they want to hear about your love and feelings of affection towards them. They don't want to hear about your vulnerabilities or crippling depression. Men are abusers. Just look at the violence statistics. Men definitely can be violent. I'm not trying to minimize that at all. But abuse comes in different forms, and those forms are not tracked in law enforcement databases. They are not tracked anywhere. Men can be victims of abuse too, and it's often overlooked because men are tough. They can handle it. That makes me sad. As a man, the relationships with the highest rates of domestic violence are lesbian relationships. I've known way more women who've cheated than men. I've dated more women who cheated than no men who have. Yeah. So have I. Did every one of yours expect you to forgive them? I know mine did. One did. Even made a compelling argument as to why it happened. But I could never trust her again. Outfits. Men could care less if you wear the same thing several times a month and probably wouldn't even notice it weekly. Women feel some sort of compulsion to have outfits that don't repeat a season. I have to agree with the beauty standards, especially for women. Most men I see don't really give a ress about beauty standards. They just have preferences, but it's always women being the most judgmental of other women. The men actually forcing beauty standards are just a minority of loud assholes. Slut shaming. It's quite in line with what you said about beauty standards. That men don't share their emotions. That somehow this is because of toxic masculinity. This idea that men don't share emotions around other men. Actually, I share my emotions around other men all the time. Easily in fact. And I have never had any problems with that. I have always been heard and accepted. The problems come when I share my emotions with women. When I have shown vulnerability in the past to women. They find it weak, or they attack me and blame me. It's never the woman's fault. Always my fault. Men are so insecure. Or he's doing that because of insecurity. Lots of men are. Absolutely. But him having problems with you going to the club with your easy, sleazy girlfriends and your tits hanging out isn't from insecurity. It's because he knows that's how bad things happen. You shouldn't really want or need to go to the club when in a relationship. You can drink, dance, listen to loud music with your friends so many other places. You're going out to the club in parts for the energy and fun. But also for the attention, validation, interest. Why would one want that extra sexual attention? Looking to cheat or not, you want that extra attention because survey says insecurity. You have a good man, good friends, know you're pretty, you get hit on often. But it's not enough. It's never enough. You need the constant reminder that men want to sleep with you and find you sexy. You are insecure. We are not responsible for the beauty standards you constantly impose on yourself. 8/10 guys have no idea about women's clothing, makeup, and they can't be bothered to judge or criticize it. I've always seen women being way harsher on each other with looks than men. If you really hate how society and marketing campaigns push this on you, stop participating in the needless competition. You're the ones who are constantly spending money on products and then complain about feeling the pressure to look good. Right now, having sex, rape with their students, cheating on their SOs. Women hold themselves and each other to beauty standards. Who is in the advertising for the beauty commercials? Women. Who are the salespeople selling it? Women and gay men who do not have a dog in the fight. Who uses filters to fix their face? Women. Who do women say they are doing makeup for? In my experience, they say for themselves. So this whole men force beauty standards on women idea doesn't hold water to me. Women are doing it to themselves. That we don't have empathy. We absolutely do things that matter or make sense to us. Case in point. Someone screwing up once on something out of control would warrant empathy from me. Someone repeatedly screwing up within the limits of their control doesn't get that much. I often see this lack of empathy accusation whenever men don't have the same reactions towards something that women want them to have. Especially for women they perceive to be struggling. When the roles are reversed. However, in an almost identical situation, some women will come up with some asinine reason of why it was okay for a woman to do something they would crucify a man for doing. That empathy well seems to dry up then. Almost all of the relationship and data subreddits have weekly examples of this. Women encourage toxic masculinity a lot more than most men I've seen.